started. So mostly by today I'll be completing this chapter. Let's see. So last class we started semiconductors, right? We saw nuclei and then we started semiconductor. I told you some important points. In the previous class, yeah. So in the previous class, we saw what are semiconductors, right? So we saw what are semiconductors and what is the major difference between a conductor and a conductor, insulator, and a semiconductor. So they are classified on the basis of two factors. One is you can speak about their difference in terms of their resistivity, or you can speak in terms of their energy band diagram, right? So when we spoke about energy band diagram, it consists of a valence band, a conduction band, and something called as a forbidden energy gap. If you talk about an insulator, the forbidden energy gap is going to be more. That is, it is approximately of the value of plus 5 electron volt. Similarly, when you talk about semiconductor, it is going to be narrow. And when you talk about a conductor, for a conductor, it will be almost overlapping. That is, the forbidden energy gap is approximated to 0. So these are all the differentiating factors in terms of energy band diagram, right? Now we will be seeing, so we also saw what are electrons and holes in a semiconductor. I hope you remember this also. So when you talk about the forbidden energy gap, you have the valence band. In the valence band, it is all about the energy possessed by the electrons in the valence band. So when sufficient amount of energy is supplied to these electrons jump to the conduction band. When they jump, it is observed that the vacancy that is created due to the excitement of electrons, that is when they get escape to the conduction band, is what is called as a hole, right? So last class I explained what is a hole current also. So that is, when you talk about the semiconductor, the mainly used semiconductors are silicon and germanium. So you talk about germanium, the valence electrons are 4, so it forms a covalent bond. And when it is forming a covalent bond, it is observed that if one of the electrons in the bond escapes, then there is a hole created at that particular location. So hole is represented with an open circle. So what will happen to the hole? The electron from the neighboring atom will jump into this hole, as a result of which you will have a hole at the other place. So to compensate this hole, the electron from the neighboring atom will come out and compensate it. So wherever there is a loss of electron, right? Wherever there is electron missing, at that position, there is something called as hole generated. So when the electrons are actually getting transferred from one location to other, it appears as if the hole is moving from one point to another. And that current is what we called it as hole current. But we have to remember that for hole current to exist, it is the actual motion of electrons, not the actual motion of holes. I hope all these points are clear, right? All these things we have discussed. So just a recapitulation. I hope it is clear. Is there any doubt?
No, sir.
Yes,
okay. So from going forward, you should remember that a semiconductor consists of electrons and holes as the majority charge carriers. Let's see what they are. So what happens in a conductor is, in conductors, we don't speak about positive charges because they cannot actually move. So it is only the electrons which are the majority charge carriers. Due to the motion of electrons in the conductor, I'm talking about a conductor. Due to the motion of electrons in the conductor, we are able to observe some current is flowing through this particular material. Whereas in the case of a semiconductor, there is electron as well as hole that is present. So let's see what they are. So basically, semiconductors are classified into two types. One is called as intrinsic and the second is called as extrinsic. It's called as extrinsic semiconductor. Okay. So let's see what intrinsic means. So intrinsic generally means pure form. That is, when you talk about a silicon or germanium, both are semiconductors which are used these days. So when you talk about silicon or germanium, right? If these materials are used in their purest form as semiconductors, then those type of semiconductors are called as intrinsic. That is, a semiconductor which is pure and contains no impurity is known as intrinsic semiconductor. So remember this word impurity. I'll tell you what it means. So what happens in an intrinsic semiconductor is the number of free electrons and holes are equal. So in an intrinsic semiconductor, the important point to be noted is number of electrons is equal to the number of holes that are present. So common examples of intrinsic semiconductor are pure germanium and pure silicon. This is already known. So the forbidden energy gap in the case of an intrinsic semiconductor is generally so small that even at ordinary room temperature, there are many electrons which possess sufficient energy in the form of the energy is supplied in the form of heat. So excitation takes place, as a result of which the valence electrons jump into the conduction band. Okay, it is easy for them to cross the forbidden energy gap and enter into the conduction band. So you're able to see the diagram here. So from this, can I say that intrinsic semiconductors also can conduct? So they can conduct even at room temperature, because that's what the theory says. The forbidden energy gap is so small at ordinary room temperature that there are many electrons which possess sufficient energy to cross the forbidden energy gap and enter into the conduction band, right? So if that is the case, we can say that intrinsic semiconductors do conduct, right? But there is a disadvantage with it, in the sense, though it has the capacity to conduct, the process of conduction will not be that great because it cannot generate many free charge carriers at room temperature itself. So what we need to do is, depending on what type of charge carriers you want in excess. So when I say charge carriers, if you want to understand what are charge carriers, these are the charges which are responsible for the conduction of current in that particular material. For example, if I ask you what are the majority charge carriers in case of a conductor, you have to say it is electrons. In a similar way, when you talk about a semiconductor, there are two types of charge carriers. One can be electron and the second can be a hole. So depending on which one is in excess in comparison to the other, there are different kinds of semiconductors that will come that we will see later. But as of now, you need to understand one thing, that when you talk about an intrinsic semiconductor, the number of electrons will be equal to the number of holes. And though at room temperature, some valence electrons are able to jump into the conduction band and it is able to conduct, it is observed that the conduction process is not that efficient because there are not many charge carriers that are required for the actual current to get generated. So for that, what we will do is to overcome this limitation, we will go for a process called as doping a semiconductor, which is very, very important. So the meaning of doping a semiconductor is, when you talk of, so you can think of generating electrons and holes in a pure semiconductor crystal with a heat or light energy, right? So electrons and holes can be generated in a semiconductor crystal with heat energy or light energy, like how we did here. We have generated holes, we have generated free electrons also. But the efficient and convenient method of generating free electrons and holes is to add very small amount of selected impurity inside the crystal. Means if you have a pure form, to that pure form, you need to add some selected impurity so that you are able to generate excess amount of electrons or holes, not both simultaneously. You can either generate excess amount of electrons in the crystal or you can generate excess amount of holes in the crystal. Okay, so how we are going to do that, and by doing that, what is advantage? Let's see. So the impurity to be added is generally of the order of 100 parts per million. Okay, and the process of addition of a very small amount of impurity into an intrinsic semiconductor is what is called as doping. So doping is nothing but it is a process. So it is a process of doing what? Process of adding very small amount of impurity to an intrinsic semiconductor. Okay, why do we do that? To increase the conductivity of that material. Okay, and the impure atoms that are added are called as dopants. Okay, so a semiconductor containing impurity atoms is known as impure or doped and most commonly it is called as extrinsic semiconductor, which is just the opposite of intrinsic semiconductor. Guys, am I clear with this?
Yes,
Guys,
sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So next is, what are all the ways in which the doping can take place? So what are all the methods that can be followed for you to dope a semiconductor? One is, the impurity atoms are added to the pure semiconductor in its molten state. That is, you melt it and then you add the impurity atoms. This is one of the methods. Or you take the pure semiconductor and you bombard it with ions of impurity atoms. That is, you generate a forced collision between the pure semiconductor and the impurities to be added. So generally the pure semiconductor is called as the target, and these bombarded by ions, we are saying, no, the ions which are used for the process of collision are called as projectiles. Okay, you take these ions and you fuse with the pure semiconductor by creating a collision. Or the third way of generating or doping a semiconductor is, when the semiconductor crystal containing the impurity atom is heated, the impurity atoms diffuse into the hot crystal. So that is, you heat the semiconductor crystal along with the impurity atom. When you do this, during the process of heating itself, the impure atoms will get diffused into the hot crystal. Okay. So these are the three ways in which we can, these are three methods through which the doping process can be carried forward. Okay. Now the important point to be noted. When I told you about adding impurity, I didn't say it can be any impurity that you can add. There is an important point here. Only small amount of what? Selected impurities. So what do you mean by that selected impurity? Okay. Let's think logically. So what are the two types of semiconductors, two semiconductors we are speaking about, germanium and silicon? If you observe the valency of both these atoms, the valency is 4. Hence, both these atoms will have the tendency to undergo a covalent bond between their neighboring atoms, right? When that is the case, then equal number of electrons are getting shared between the atoms. But what are we seeing doping is, and why are we doing this doping process? To generate excess amount of electrons or holes, right? So, when I say its valency is 4, let's think logically, guys. If I need excess amount of electrons, then I need to add what kind of an element to it? What kind of an element is supposed to be added to this pure germanium atom so that you have excess electrons?
Metal.
Sorry?
Metal.
Metal. I didn't get you. So, listen. You have a germanium, 2 electrons. So you have a neighboring germanium atom. You have another neighboring germanium. So they are participating in the bond. So what I need to do is, I need to add the impurity in such a way. Let's say that impurity is X. I don't know what it is. In such a way that the impurity which is getting added should be able to contribute its electrons for the process of bonding. So for the process of bonding, how many electrons are expected from the impurity? So how many electrons are expected from the impurity? I'll use red color, see. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 from impurity and 4 from 4 neighboring germanium atoms. Right? But we need excess amount of electrons. So what is the minimum number that this impurity is supposed to contain?
5.
It should have 5. Okay. But generally we don't say minimum number is 5, so you can add a pentavalent or you can add with valency 6 and all. Generally, for generating excess amount of electrons, it is the pentavalent atoms that are added as impurity to the pure semiconductors. So usually the doping material is either pentavalent, or suppose you want to create deficiency of electrons, then you use trivalent, because in trivalent there will only be 3 electrons. 3 will be participating in bonding and 1 will be left free. So generally the dopants are pentavalent atoms or trivalent atoms. Like pentavalent in bismuth, antimony, phosphorus, arsenic, which are all having 5 valence electrons, or trivalent impurities like aluminum, gallium, indium, boron. All these things have 3 valence electrons. Okay. So you logically tell me, by adding pentavalent impurity, what will happen? Will you get excess amount of electrons or holes? Pentavalent means 4 will participate in bonding and 1 will be free. So you will have excess amount of electrons. Okay. So generally the pentavalent doping atom which is added is also known as donor atom, because it donates 1 electron to the conduction band of a pure semiconductor. Whereas a trivalent atom is generally called as an acceptor atom because it accepts 1 electron from the pure semiconductor atom. Okay. So have these 2 points in your mind. So based on this, you will understand what an extrinsic semiconductor is. So with this, I hope you guys are clear with what is doping, and what kind of materials are chosen for doping to generate excess electrons and excess holes. Are you all clear?
Sir,
Settle.
so when we add trivalent atoms, we get hole current, is it?
You will not get hole current. You will have excess amount of holes. Current is a secondary action. You will have excess amount of holes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Students, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I hope you're able to see, right? Yeah. So the last point we were discussing is, see, the whole objective of all these doping process only to increase the electrical conductivity of that particular semiconductor. Okay. So unlike conductors where you have free electrons alone, depending on the type of impurity that you add, okay, an extrinsic semiconductor is basically classified into two types. One is called as N type or P type. So understand the classification. I'll bring it like this. See, semiconductor is classified into two types. On the basis of what? On the basis of purity. One is called intrinsic and the second is called as extrinsic. And extrinsic is further divided into two types. What are the two types? One is called N type and the second is called P type. So if you guys have written your record by now, you would have written something called as a PN junction diode and all. There is an activity, there is an experiment like this. In that PN junction diode, P stands for P-type semiconductor, N stands for N-type semiconductor. Okay, so semiconductor classified into intrinsic and extrinsic depending on the purity, and extrinsic is further subdivided into N-type and P-type depending on the type of impurity you add. So let me explain what an N-type semiconductor is. So here N means, you can remember, it is negative. See, generally N doesn't mean negative here. It's called as N-type. I'm just giving you a hint to remember. N is negative, means it has excess what? Electrons.
Electron.
Okay. So for that, what kind of impurity are you supposed to add? You add a pentavalent impurity. When a small amount of pentavalent impurity such as arsenic is added to the pure germanium semiconductor, the resulting crystal is called as N-type semiconductor. Okay. Now observe, I told you, right? So the arsenic is the impurity. So from arsenic, the 4 valence electrons present in it have participated in the covalent bonding with the neighboring germanium atoms. And the remaining 1 electron is what is the free electron that is going to participate in the conduction of this particular material. Are you guys able to understand? So this is what happens. So when you add a pentavalent impurity, you're going to get more amount of free electrons. Okay. So from this, what we can conclude is, so this is the structure which they're trying to talk about. So figure below shows the crystal structure obtained when pentavalent arsenic impurity is added with a pure germanium crystal. The 4 valence electrons of arsenic atom from covalent bonds form covalent bonds with electrons of neighboring 4 germanium atom. The 5th electron of arsenic atom is loosely bound, and this electron can move about almost as freely as an electron in a conductor, and hence it will be the carrier of current. So if a type of semiconductor where electrons are the majority charge carriers, then the type of semiconductor is called as N-type semiconductor. So for an N-type semiconductor, observe how the energy band diagram is going to be. You have the valence band, you have the conduction band, right? So there is something called as donor level. Let's see what it is. So in the energy band picture, the energy state corresponding to the 5th valence electron is in the forbidden energy gap. Okay. So the 5th electron will have some energy with it, right? That energy will neither be completely associated with the valence band nor with the conduction band. It will be somewhere close to what? It will be close to the conduction band. So from this, it is clear. So logically think, no, when you talk about an intrinsic semiconductor, you need to supply the total energy that is required, that is present in the forbidden energy gap for the valence electron to jump to whom? To the conduction band. For the electron, the valence band to jump into the conduction band. Whereas in an N-type semiconductor, what is going to happen is, the electron, since it is neither in the valence band nor in the conduction band, since it is close to the conduction band, if you supply this much amount of energy, means if you supply even less amount of energy, this electron, this free electron will be able to go to the conduction band, and our conduction process will become simple. So the level of energy which is just below the conduction band is what is called as donor level. Guys, are you able to visualize this?
Yes, sir.
So this level is called as donor level. So what will happen is, it is the fifth valence electrons of the arsenic. Remember, the fifth valence electron, when it is transferred to the conduction band, the arsenic atom obviously will become positively charged immobile ion. It is immobile because it is the remaining 4 electrons are actually participating in the bonding. The ion as a whole cannot move. Guys, are you able to understand? So each impurity atom donates 1 free electron to the semiconductor. These impurity atoms are called as donors because something which is able to give electrons is called as a donor. Something which is able to accept is called as an acceptor. So in an N-type semiconductor material, the number of electrons increases compared to the available number of charge carriers in the intrinsic semiconductor. So in this case, Ne will generally be greater than NH. So this is because of the availability of large number of electrons. So this is because the available large number of electrons increases the rate of recombination of electrons with the holes. So let's see what this recombination in the case of a PN junction diode. As of now, understand what an N-type semiconductor is. So one point to be remembered is, this might be a 1-mark question. In N-type semiconductor, free electrons are the majority charge carriers and holes are the minority charge carriers. Okay, majority means they contribute more compared to holes. Okay. So the counterpart of N-type is obviously P-type semiconductor. So this, I need not read the whole story. You can understand it easily. So if I think of a trivalent impurity like a boron, then what will happen is it has 3 valence electrons. So 3 valence electrons participate in the bonding, and the 4th valence electron is not there, right? So there is a vacancy of electron at that place. That's what we call it as hole, right? So the 3 valence electrons from the boron atom form covalent bonds with valence electrons of 3 neighboring germanium atoms. In the 4th covalent bond, only 1 valence electron is available from the germanium atom, and there is deficiency of an electron, which is called as hole. Hence, when you add each boron atom, 1 hole is generated. Since the holes can accept electrons from neighborhood, the impurity that is added is called as acceptor. This I have already told. Okay. So if you observe the energy band diagram, what will happen is, the acceptor level, that is the hole that is present in this particular, the hole that is getting generated in this particular process, will neither have energy of an valence electron or an electron in the conduction band. Okay. It will have an energy intermediate where it is slightly above the valence band. And this level is called as the acceptor level. Means if you supply this much amount of energy, then the electrons in the holes in the acceptor level will actually be able to conduct. That is what we are trying to say. And I have already explained you what is the process of hole current. The hole may be filled by an electron from neighboring atom, creating a hole in that position from where the electron moves. So this process continues and the hole moves about in a random manner due to its thermal effects. Since the hole is associated with positive charge moving from one position to another, this type is called as a P-type semiconductor. In a P-type semiconductor, the acceptor impurity produces an energy level just above the valence band as shown in the figure, and that level is called as the acceptor level. Okay, so in a P-type semiconductor, holes are the majority charge carriers and free electrons are the minority charge carriers. Guys, these are the 2 important basics with respect to this whole chapter. Are you guys clear with this? Did you understand what is an N-type and what is a P-type semiconductor? If you are clear with this, I'll
Yes, sir.
proceed. Okay. Now comes an important topic. I'm sure you would have heard this word, which is a PN junction diode. Once the class is over, right, you can actually go and revisit your observation book and see. You will be doing this experiment also. Then you will do something called as forward and reverse bias characteristics of a PN junction diode. But before we see the characteristics, first we need to understand what exactly is a PN junction diode. Here, di represents 2. Okay. P and N combined together. When P and N semiconductors are brought together, then there is a small junction that is formed. Okay, that junction is what is called as a PN junction. And let's see what it actually means. So P-type is a separate semiconductor, N-type is a separate semiconductor. When you try to bring them close to each other, let's see what exactly is going to happen. So if one side of a single crystal of pure semiconductor is doped with acceptor impurity. So you take a single crystal, okay? You take a single crystal of either germanium or silicon. One of the sides, what you do is you dope it with acceptor impurity. Acceptor impurity means trivalent impurity. When you dope it with trivalent impurity, then you will have excess amount of holes. Then this will become a P-type. Similarly, on the other side, you dope it with a donor impurity. That is with a pentavalent impurity. When you do that, you will have an N-type semiconductor. So here, the important point to be noted is what? It is not like a P-type and an N-type semiconductor are brought close to each other. You take a single crystal. On a single crystal, this kind of a process is being carried out. Okay. So P region has high concentration of holes and N region contains large number of electrons. So as soon as the junction is formed, so there is a junction that is formed, right? Now comes the important point. So as soon as this junction is formed, do you think all these electrons are going to stay at their original position and all the holes will also be able to stay at their original position? Is it going to happen? Suppose I have a positive charge and a negative charge and they both are close to each other. Will they be able to hold their positions at the same point?
No, sir.
What will happen? There will be some neutralization process that is going to take place. Means the negative and the positive will try to recombine to become neutral because this is having some energy and this is having some energy. Am I right? So listen, as soon as this dotted line of this junction is formed, what will happen is the electrons, the free electrons and the holes cross through the junction by a process called as diffusion. So there are two important processes that will take place within a PN junction diode. One is called as diffusion and the second is called as drifting. Try to understand the difference. So here diffusion is a natural process. So what is going to happen? Once the junction is formed, the free electrons and holes will have the tendency to cross the junction, as a result of which there will be recombination taking place. So during this process, the electrons crossing the junction from the N region into the P region recombine with holes in the P region, at which point, so there are certain electrons which are close to the junction, right? So they recombine with the holes in the P region which are very close to the junction. Got it? So when this is going to happen, let's see what is going to be the intermediate step. I can say holes will be here. And here, what will you have? This region will be what? So the region which I've drawn, is it going to be positive, negative, or neutral?
Negative.
It will be neutral. Why? So after this step down, so during this process, the electrons crossing the junction from, you are able to understand, right? Electrons are negatively charged, holes are positively charged. So electrons from the N region, when they get recombined with the holes in the positive region, so negative and positive combined together, it is going to be neutral, right? So you have some more electrons that are present here. Now observe. Similarly, the holes crossing the junction from the P region into N region recombine with the electrons, the N region, very close to the junction. So when this process is going to get carried out, okay, if this kind of a process continues, can I say that the N and the P will get completely exchanged? Means initially you had this side to be P and this side to be N. So if this process is allowed to continue, that is, this process of diffusion is allowed to continue, can I say the N and the P side will get swapped? Are you guys able to understand?
Yes, sir.
But here, one important point that is to be noted is, if it is getting swapped, this process will go on for infinite amount of time. If that is going to happen, what are we going to speak about conductivity? Why are we even studying all these things? Because we are saying P-type and N-type are mainly created for the conductivity process. If everything happens naturally, then we don't need this device at all, right? Then we don't use it at all. So what exactly is going to happen is observe. There's the junction. First step, excess amount of holes, excess electrons. So the recombination process is taking place. Okay, as a result of which, if I say this part is going to become neutral, can I say the electrons can further get combined with these neutral parts? So try to understand, guys. Initially, you have holes here, you have electrons here. Now, what has happened? Due to the natural attraction process and diffusion, the electrons got recombined with holes. As a result of it, they are making this region neutral. So if this region has become neutral, if I say there are further electrons which are getting or which are trying to flow to this neutral part, then what will happen to the neutral part in the subsequent step?
Negative.
So it will become negative, right? So it will become negative, due to which what will happen is, see, it is not like this electron is going to get combined with this. Okay, because remember, parallelly, the holes are also moving to the other side. Okay, because there are holes created on the other side. Wherever there is a deficiency of electrons, holes are getting created. Right? So this process, what will happen is, when an electron, so since the negative is created, so what is happening? From the holes, you have created the neutral step. From the neutral step, by excess amount of electrons, you have created a small amount of negative charge on which side? Have you created the negative charge on the P side or N side?
P side.
P side.
Created on the P side, right? So when the further motion of electrons is going, so now tell me, you have some more electrons in the N type. Will there be a possibility of those electrons to actually get recombined with the holes which are present here? Is it possible? So we are going to think of only one fact: like charges repel, unlike charges attract. That's it.
There will
So
be
is it-
repulsion because of the negative charges, no, sir?
Will be repulsion due to the negative charges which has got created due to the process of diffusion. So all these things are happening naturally. As soon as you created the junction, all these things will happen. As a result of which, when you have negative charge this side, there should be some amount of positive charge which is on the positive side, which is on the N-type side. Right? So there will be a small barrier that is going to get created across the junction, where there will be slight amount of negative charge on the P-type, on the side of P-type semiconductor, and there will be a small amount of positive charge on the N-type semiconductor, and this barrier will have a small width, okay, due to which the further diffusion process is going to stop. Are you guys able to understand? So all these things are going to happen naturally. As a result of which, there is going to be a small barrier in the sense, a dam kind of thing. There will be a small wall which is getting built between the P and the N type, so that further recombination of holes and electrons is not going to take place. As a result of which, even before you have connected an external potential source, there is a small amount of potential difference that is created across the junction, which is called as the barrier potential. Some books refer to it as potential barrier, both are right. Okay, and this region, this region of wall which is getting developed for the further recombination, to avoid the further recombination of holes and electrons, is what is called as depletion region. Am I clear, guys? So depletion region will have a small width associated with it. It will be in terms of micrometer. It will be very, very small because this device itself is very, very small. Are you guys able to understand this? Guys, I need a response. Am I clear or is there any confusion?
Clear, sir.
Clear, right? Okay. Now let me read out so that you can relate to all the points that I've told. So let's come from these. So you understood what is diffusion, right? So during this process, the electrons crossing the junction from N region into the P region recombine with holes in the P region very close to the junction. Similarly, holes crossing the junction from the P region into the N region recombine with the electrons in the N region, which are very close to the junction. So by this kind of a process going on, there's a region is formed which does not allow any mobile charge carriers very close to the junction. And this region is called as depletion region. The actual story is not given here. Okay. So the electrons which are actually crossing the barrier itself are acting as a resistive force for the further electrons to actually move. So it is creating a barrier by itself. And that region is what is called as depletion region. In this region, on the left side of the junction, the acceptor atoms become negative ions. On the right side, the donor atoms become positive ions. That's what I have written here. Left side becomes negative and the right side becomes positive. Okay. So there is an electric field which is set up. See, wherever there is a potential difference, you have to remember that there is electric field. So throughout your physics, you have to remember this. Wherever I say electric field, potential is existing. Because we know that E is equal to minus dV by dr. They both are interrelated terms. So when I say there is a positive and a negative charge which is separated by a certain distance, then obviously there will be an electric field. In which side, guys? Negative, positive means electric field is going to be from right to left. Okay. The potential at the N side is higher than the potential at the P side. Therefore, electrons in the N side are prevented to go to the lower potential of P side. Similarly, holes in the P side find themselves at lower potential and are prevented to cross the N side. Thus, there is a barrier at the junction which opposes the moment. There is a barrier at the junction which opposes the moment of the majority charge carriers. The difference of potential from one side of the barrier to the other side is called as potential barrier. I told you, right? So the potential difference between the potentials of these two junctions is what is called as barrier potential, or we call it as potential barrier. So generally the potential barrier is approximately 0.7 for silicon PN junction and 0.3 volt for germanium PN junction. Because I told you, right, you take a single crystal on which this whole process is carried out. If you take the single crystal to be silicon, then the potential barrier is 0.7 volt. If you take the germanium, it is 0.3 volt. Okay. The distance from one side of the barrier to the other side is called as the width of the barrier, which depends upon the nature of the material. So these are all the basic steps. So how a PN junction is actually formed, this is what happens. So it is formed due to the process of diffusion. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Next is, so you can remember it like this. So next is, I will give you, what is the symbol of a semiconductor diode? It's nothing but a triangle like this, and a line at the end of the triangle, a line on either side. So the bigger line, the base, if you take like this as the base of the triangle and this as the vertex, okay, the base side is called as P and the vertex side is called as N. Okay, going forward, we'll not be drawing that box again and again. We'll draw something like this, like how we draw this for a resistor. For a resistor, there is nothing like positive and negative side, whereas for a diode, you have a positive side and a negative side. That is, you have P type and N type. Okay, so have this in your mind. Now see. So you have created a barrier, right? So barrier is there. You guys tell me, will the material have greater conductivity or less conductivity? When I say there is a barrier which is created, there is a wall-like structure that is built within the material itself. Will that material have good conducting property or bad conducting property? Guys, think and tell me. So this is the wall. Okay. So when can I say current is constituted? So what do you mean by current flowing through a particular material? We can say current is flowing through that material if the free charge carriers are freely able to move within that material. Now think logically, will this wall allow the free charge carriers to move? Obviously, it is no. Right? It is not going to allow. So then what is the use? Again, we need to speak mainly about the conductivity because the name itself says semiconductors, right? They have conductive property. So, unlike conductors, I'm repeating it, unlike conductors, the PN junction diode has two advantages. This PN junction diode can either be used like a very good conductor or it can behave like an insulator also. I'm repeating it. A PN junction diode has the capability to behave like a conductor as well as an insulator also, depending on two scenarios, and those scenarios are called as forward bias condition and reverse bias condition. Okay, so before I explain what is forward bias and reverse bias, I need to explain what is the meaning of biasing. So please make a note of it. Biasing in semiconductors. Okay, this is the term which is mainly used only in semiconductors. Whenever you see the word biasing in semiconductor, it means, write it down, connecting any semiconductor device, is connected across a battery. When any semiconductor device is connected across a battery through a resistor, is called bias. Okay. So what exactly this means is, PN junction diode is a semiconductor, right? So this is P type, this is N type. So when I take this P type semiconductor with the help of a resistor, if I connect it across a battery like this, then this kind of a process is called as biasing. So biasing is a process where you add a battery to an existing semiconductor device. Why we use resistor is only to control the amount of current. If you want lesser amount of current to flow through the device without spoiling it, we can use a resistor. Generally, you can prefer a variable resistor or a rheostat. Okay, so have this in your mind, guys. So this is called as biasing. So in the process of biasing, there are two things that can happen. One process can be called as forward bias and the other can be called as reverse bias, depending on certain differentiating factors. Let's see. So as you see the word forward biased, this forward biased of a PN junction will actually make the PN junction diode behave like a conductor. Okay. Now certain questions to be answered. Why is a PN junction diode having resistance within itself? Who's actually creating the resistance for the flow of charges?
The barrier.
The barrier, right? The depletion region is actually creating the resistance in this material. So if I need to make it as a good conductor, what checkpoint do I need to ensure to make it a good conductor? I need to ensure that the barrier should become of lesser width or more width.
Lesser width.
Obviously, it should become lesser width. If it has to become lesser width, we know one concept that through the process of diffusion, by default, you have negative charge on the left side and positive charge on the right side. So there is an electric field created in this direction. There is an electric field inside the material. Am I right? No. When I say connecting a battery is again a potential source. When you connect the potential source, again you are creating electric field. So the electric field created by the battery needs to ensure what? So concentrate, this is an important point. The electric field generated by the battery needs to ensure that the electric field which is already existing in the depletion region should be suppressed. If that should happen, logically think is the electric field inside the barrier is from right to left. So we need to apply the potential source in which direction? We need to apply the potentials in such a way that the electric field due to the external source is generated in the left to right direction. Am I clear? So if the electric field has to be from left to right direction, then this side should be positive and this side should be negative. That is why if you take a P-type semiconductor and connect it across the positive terminal, and you take N-type and connect it across the negative terminal of the external battery, then this kind of a biasing is called as forward bias condition. Okay. So when the positive terminal of the battery is connected to the P side and the negative terminal is connected to the N side, so that what will happen? The potential difference acts in opposite direction to the barrier potential. Then the PN junction diode is said to be forward biased. By doing this, what are we going to achieve? When a PN junction diode is forward biased as shown in the figure, the applied positive potential from where? From the battery repels whom? Repels the holes in the P-type semiconductor, and the applied negative terminal, which is directly connected to N-type, repels the negative charge in the N-type. So applied negative potential repels the electrons in the N region so that the charges move towards the junction. Okay. If you keep, let's say you have a variable potential source in your hand, you can change the potential from 0 to 1, 1 to 2 like that. Then if you are able to increase the potential, that is how you do the experiment also in the lab. You'll have a knob. You'll rotate that knob. When you rotate that knob, you can observe after a certain point, you can see that the current in the particular PN junction diode will increase. Okay. So if the applied potential difference is more than the potential barrier, then what will happen? Some holes and free electrons enter into the depletion region. Hence, the potential barrier as well as the width of the depletion region are reduced. So this is what is going to happen. Means there is a repulsive force acting against the walls of the barrier, as a result of which, when the potential that you are applying is increasing compared to what? Increasing compared to the already existing potential inside the barrier. Okay. Then the width of the depletion region will decrease. And what will happen? The process of conduction will start taking place. Okay. So after some point, when you increase the potential, like, see, you have already increased the potential greater than the potential of the barrier. Further, if you increase, what will happen is the barrier, the depletion region itself will disappear and the potential barrier also disappears. Hence, under the action of forward potential, The majority charge carriers flow across the junction in opposite direction and constitute current flow in the forward direction. To put it in very simple terms, in forward bias condition, a PN junction diode is a very, very good conductor, provided the potential that you apply should be greater than the barrier potential. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
So obviously the counterpart of this forward bias is going to be reverse bias. So reverse bias means what you yourself tell me. When P-type semiconductor is connected to the negative of the external battery and N-type is connected to the positive of the external battery, then that type of biasing is called as reverse bias condition. So when the positive terminal of the battery is connected to N side and the negative terminal is connected to P side, so that the applied potential difference is the same as that of the barrier potential, then the junction is said to be under a reverse bias condition. So when you have a reverse bias condition, guys, tell me what will happen. Will the width of the depletion region increase or decrease?
Increase.
So it keeps increasing, right? So till how much time do you think it is going to increase? Is it going to happen for infinite amount of process, or will there be something like breakage? I know this is tough to answer, but I'll just create a similarity, okay? Do you guys remember dielectrics? Within the capacitor, there was a concept called as dielectrics. Okay. There's only to create a similarity, it has no relevance, okay? There's only to create a similarity, you can just do a comparative study. So, when I place a dielectric between the plates of a capacitor, there is a process called as polarization that is going to take place, due to which there is an induced electric field that is generated inside the dielectric. I hope you guys remember this, right? And there is an external electric field E0 taking place, right? Such that the net electric field inside is going to be E0 minus En, accepted? So something like this will happen. Now tell me, if I keep increasing the external field, that is the value of E0, will the dielectric be able to completely withstand how much ever value I increase, or there will be a process called as breakdown that is taking place? Will it be able to completely take?
Breakdown.
So there is something called as breakdown. And there is another parameter called as breakdown voltage. Do you guys remember this? There is a concept called as breakdown voltage. So what do you mean by the breakdown voltage? Breakdown voltage means, do you think the dielectric will break into parts?
The magnitude of the external electric field for which the dielectric gets completely converted into a conductor.
Very good. Because when we say breakdown, what people think? Do you think it is going to break into pieces? No. Breakdown is a term which is used for insulators generally. So for insulators, what happens is, after a certain point, the insulator cannot behave anymore like an insulator. It will start behaving like a conductor. Means beyond a certain point, it is giving up its property of insulation. It cannot insulate anymore. Means it will also start generating, it will also start conducting, but it will not be as efficient as a conductor, because this is a forced conduction. We are actually breaking it. We are trying to make it lose its property and do it. Okay. But the point you guys have to remember is, there is something called as breakdown voltage. Means when you apply an electric field, the point at which the insulator gets converted into a conductor is what is called as breakdown. Okay. In a similar way, what will happen here is, during the reverse bias condition, you people told me that the width of the depletion region is going to increase. When it is going to increase, can I say that the PN junction diode behaves like an insulator? So when it is going to behave like an insulator, if I keep increasing the external potential, the insulating property inside it cannot be held for a longer time. There will be a certain point after which it starts breaking. The depletion region is broken and it starts conducting. And that point is called as the breakdown voltage. Okay. So that is a very, very important point with respect to a PN junction diode. So the remaining story, everything is going to be understandable. You can just go through it, you will understand. I'll send it after the class. So I'll just read this point, listen. So when the PN junction diode is reverse bias, the electrons in the N region and the holes in the P region are attracted away from the junction. Because of this, the number of negative ions in the P region and the positive ions in the N region increases. Hence, the depletion region becomes wider and the potential barrier is increased. Since the depletion region does not contain majority charge carriers, it acts like an insulator. Therefore, no current should flow in the external circuit. But in practice, a very small current, generally in terms of few microampere, flows in the reverse direction. This is due to whom? The minority charge carriers flowing in the opposite direction, that too after the point of breakdown. So the reverse current is generally small because the number of minority charge carriers in both the regions are very small, obviously, right? I told you, right, this conduction process is taking place because of the material losing its insulating property, right? So since the major source of minority charge carriers is since the major source of minority carriers is thermally broken covalent bonds, the reverse current mainly depends on the junction temperature. So there is another point to be kept in your mind. So based on whatever story we discussed till now, we will be understanding a concept called as characteristics of diode. Okay. In physics, again, you will see this word characteristics. Characteristics means variation of one physical quantity with respect to another. I have already told this in dual nature of atoms. Dual nature of matter and radiation. I've already discussed this. There we saw the characteristics of photoelectric current. Here we are going to speak about the characteristics of diode. So there are two important characteristics that we are going to study. One is called as forward bias characteristic and the second is called as the reverse bias characteristic. Okay. So what exactly you mean by forward bias characteristic is when you connect a P-type semiconductor to the positive of the battery and N-type to the negative of the battery with the help of a variable resistor. Okay. So this diagram is simple to remember. I'll explain it. See. I told you what is biasing, right? Taking a semiconductor and connecting it across a battery is called as biasing. So when you take a P-type semiconductor with the help of a resistor, if it is connected to the positive of the battery, if the P-type is connected to the positive of the battery and the N-type is connected to the negative of the battery, then this type of a biasing is called as forward bias. And since we are using the word characteristic, here we are going to see something called as VI characteristic, where V stands for potential difference, I stands for current. To put it in very simple terms, we are going to see how the current is going to vary with respect to potential difference. That is the meaning. Like how we have seen in the case of a resistor. In the case of a resistor, when you take this as V and this as I, you will see something like this, right? This is also a characteristic. This is also a characteristic of a conductor. Here we are going to see, so this we can call it as VA characteristic of a conductor. Similarly, here we are going to see the VA characteristics of a semiconductor. That's it. So how we are supposed to do is, we know that a voltmeter is connected in parallel. That is why it is connected here. Whereas an ammeter is connected in series. That is why it is kept here. The same kind of a diagram is there for reverse bias characteristic also, except the fact that the junction will be reversed. Or you can just reverse the polarity of the battery. It's the same diagram. So understand, guys. So here what will happen is, if you keep increasing the potential, you have an external potential, right? Suppose this PN junction diode is made up of silicon. Then what is the barrier potential it is going to have?
0.7 volt.
So it is going to be 0.7 for silicon. Means, generally when you connect an external source, let's say the knob is at 0. So when the knob is at 0, will this PN junction diode be able to conduct? Obviously, no. So if I increase this value to 0, if I keep increasing it to 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, till what point will you see that this PN junction diode will struggle to conduct? So it will definitely not be like a conductor. For a conductor, as soon as you apply the potential difference, you can see the variation in current. Here, there is something called as barrier potential that is existing. So that is the reason I asked you for silicon, what is the barrier potential? 0.7 volt means the external potential when you are increasing from 0 to 0.7 volt. Can I say that this PN junction diode is almost going to act like an insulator? But after that 0.7 volt, what is going to happen? The barrier is completely broken, as a result of which the increase in the value of current is going to be high, even for a smaller amount of potential difference, because it has got completely converted into a conductor. That's what the story we discussed. No? So when you try to draw the characteristic, the VF stands for forward voltage, IF stands for forward current. Generally, forward current for a PN junction diode is in terms of milliampere, and potential is in terms of volt. So till you supply a potential of how much value, guys? 0.7 volt for silicon, or 0.3 volt for whom? Germanium. You can see that the value of current is very less. But after that, what will happen? There will be a sudden increase in the value of current. See, actual graph is like this. It will go like this and it will go in this way. It will not go straight. Okay, there is a small correction in this. So please make a note of this. This voltage, wait, so this is 0.7. Okay, this voltage where the potential barrier is completely broken and the conduction process takes place is called as knee voltage. Voltage at which the current starts to increase rapidly is called as cut-in voltage or knee voltage of the diode. Guys, are you able to understand why I told that 0.7 or 0.3? It is because first we need to ensure that the barrier is broken, then only the conduction process is going to be rapid. Right? Shall I proceed? What will happen in the case of reverse bias condition? So reverse bias means just the polarity is reversed. So what will happen when you try to plot the graph between reverse voltage and current? See, generally, if you see in books, no, the graph is given like this. Both forward and reverse characteristics are drawn in the same graph. So generally, the forward characteristics are taken in the first quadrant, and reverse characteristics is taken in the third quadrant. Okay, now listen to this. So, what characteristic is this? When you look at the graph, this is 0.7 volt for silicon and 0.3 volt for germanium. This is called as knee voltage or cut-in voltage. Whereas in the reverse bias condition, what will happen is when you increase the potential in the reverse bias characteristic, okay. So for this one, we are doing reverse bias characteristic, means the circuit should be like this. So when you increase the current, you can observe that the value of current is almost zero till which point? Till a point called as breakdown. Because in the reverse characteristic, it is acting like an insulator. Depletion region size is increasing. So after the reverse characteristic, you can observe that there is a sudden rise in the value of current, but the rise in value of current will only be in terms of microampere, whereas in the case of forward characteristic, it is in terms of milliampere. So then what is this voltage called as? It's called as breakdown voltage. Am I clear? So this is all about the forward and the reverse characteristics of a PN junction diode. Guys, let me know if there is any doubt.
No.
Yeah, right. So there is one last subtopic left in this chapter, that is PN junction diode as a rectifier. Okay. So for this, maximum time that is needed is 20 to 25 minutes. That I will do it in the next class. Okay. Because I want you to understand all these basics of a half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier. With that, we are done according to this year's syllabus. Till last year, we had the Zener diode and special types of diodes also. This year, they have removed it. So you have only two more subtopics, that is a half wave rectifier and a full wave rectifier. Maximum time needed is 20 to 25 minutes, that's it. With that, we are done. Next class, we'll complete it. So just an update, you guys start studying from December 1st week. There will be continuous tests. There will be exam series that is going to start. So for the next 2 weeks, I'll be giving you assignments. And whatever work is necessary, you guys have to work on it and you can come up with doubts. Okay, it's time for you people to start studying because we are done with the syllabus. Okay, so with these two concepts, we are almost done. Not almost, we are done actually. Okay, so I'll share the sheet. You can study from there. If possible, I'll suggest you guys to read this PN junction diode as rectifier also and come, so that it is easy to understand. Okay. So just give me a minute. Don't log off.